Hello, my name is Isaac and I am super stoked you are here. With all of the other excellent YouTube videos out there, you chose this one and for that I am truly humbled. I'm going to do my best to make it worth your while. Now you're probably wondering why I would use a tarp to waterproof a shower pan when we have so many other proven options out there. There's many areas of our world that either don't have access to these typical products we use or they don't have the money to afford them. So I set out to try to find something that was really inexpensive, and what I came up with was a tarp. I pick up the thickest tarp I could find, which happens to be a 10 mil thick polyethylene tarp. I noticed that polyethylene is the same material used in popular sheet membranes such as Schluter-Kerdi, so I know that it won't have any problems with alkali in the cement product. I grab a 3-stage drain, commonly used with PVC pan liners, some perma-based cement board, and some metal lath. I construct a mock-up using a pallet and some kiln-dried 2x3 lumber, and I install the drain base. Now once the drain flange is screwed down, I install the pre-slope using a mortar mix. The ratio of this mortar is 5 parts sand, 1 part cement, and 1 part lime. And now that the pre-slope is dry, it's time to install the tarp. But before I do that, you'll notice I use a silane-based caulk to seal the tarp to the drain flange. I put the caulk in the caulk ring that goes around the drain, and this is an important step that is often not done by other installers. But if the drain were to ever back up, water would back up and under the tarp and cause a leak. I use hospital folds in all the corners and cut slits in the tarp to fit over the bolts. At this point, I press the tarp down into the drain flange so that the caulk makes good contact with the tarp. The clamping ring is installed and tightened down, and now it's time to water test. Okay, so water test is going well. It's been 2 days, almost 48 hours on this flood test. As you can see, I started it on the 9th, 12/9/21 at 11:47. You see I took a measurement 1 3/4 inches when I was measuring off of the top of the clamping ring, and today is 8/39 and it is the 11th, so we are almost 2 full days, a couple hours shy, but I don't want to wait any longer. I want to drain this. Everything is dry. Doing a scan around the perimeter, looking underneath it, everything is completely dry, no leakage. Super stoked on this flood test, and I'm just going to double check my measurements here, and we have 1 3/4 inches, so we haven't lost a drop of water in this flood test. So now that it's passed a water test, I'm pretty excited and start to think that this might actually work. So I start on the construction. I use Aquabar paper behind the cement board as a vapor barrier, making sure to overlap the top of the tarp by a few inches. The cement board goes on top of that, and as I screw it down, I'm really careful not to go too far down with the screws. I do not put any screws below 2 inches above the top of the curb. Now that the cement board is installed, I float the curb using lath and the same mortar mix that I did the pre-slope with. Using a combination of levels, edges, and trowels, I am able to construct a flat, square, level, and true surface with just that right amount of slope on the top. This method also allows me to avoid screwing through the inside or top of the curb. Now the curb is done, now let's get to work on the dry pack. The dry pack, or deck mud as we call it in California, is a 5-to-1 sand to cement mixture mixed with very little water. Mixing the mortar this way allows us to shape and screed the mortar easily. Believe it or not, this mortar dries very hard when cured and does not shrink due to the low water content. Another method that a lot of California installers employ is wet setting. Wet setting is spreading the thin set and setting the tile on a fresh mortar bed. Although I wouldn't recommend it for beginners, it can save time, and it also allows me to push in any tiles if they're sitting up too high. And lastly, it's time to grout it. For this demo, I am using unsanded grout, which I probably wouldn't use on an actual job because even though it says it can be used up to an 1/8 inch grout joint, it tends to not finish nicely as a sanded grout. It tends to sag and it can shrink when those joints get up to around an 1/8 inch when using porcelain tile. But I had it in my shop, so I figured what the heck, I'll use it. So now that I finally have the display built, I actually put a lot of care and effort into building this display, but I still wanted to make sure that it didn't leak because I had done a bunch of work over the top of it and the tarp is pretty thin. I was using screws and board and lath and trowels and that type of thing. So I figured it was necessary to do another water test. So this is the plug I have, and I'm actually going to go down through the bottom where I have a 2-inch stub out coming down so that I can plug it up. You can see there I have my 2-inch stub out and the plug underneath it. You can see I got it all filled up with water to the top of the drain. The drain has water in there. And you'll see it's leaking all from the bottom of the drain, dripping off of that piece of wood. So it's all coming from right around the drain. So that leads me to believe that there's something that happened in between when I water tested it the first time and when I did all the work on it, that maybe I'm thinking, this is just my theory, and you guys let me know in the comment section below. Let's make a guess at where you think this thing is leaking. Leave it in the comment section. But I think maybe the caulk ring, I didn't fill it in good enough, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it moved, or else I hit it with my trowel, but I just don't see why it's happening right around the drain, and I'm not getting a leak out here or something. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get this plug out. So it's draining out, and all of that water that's draining out there, that's all coming through the weep holes. You see, water level is below the top of the drain now, so it's all going out through the weep holes. That's how these systems are supposed to work. As water gets down to the liner, goes down into the weep holes and gets out. Okay, so I dried up everything pretty nicely with the towel so it's all dry, so I can start taking this apart. And again, here's my vapor barrier that covers over the tarp, and then I just had the tarp stapled in at the top. Try not to cut myself. And I'll take off this corner. Yeah, everything looks pretty dry on this side. Take it off. But now I start to see the water on the pre-slope, so let me see. I'm just going to cut this out. Cut this out right here. Yeah, it looks like it's definitely, you know, I see the, yeah, now you can see the puddle of water right here. It definitely looks like it's just coming. You know, there was a bit of water up here. That caulking looks like it's sealed pretty good. Let me see. So what's interesting to me is it looks like I have standing water right here and I have a pre-slope, so it seems like if there was a void in my caulk ring that it would have just poured and it wouldn't have came up, but I actually have a puddle of water right here. So there's probably a pinhole in the tarp itself from when I was troweling. You know, I had metal lath, I had my trowels, and I was cleaning stuff up. It looks like there was a leak right in here because everything at the caulk ring, let's see if I can zoom in here. So yeah, there's the puddle of water, and then it came down into here. But yeah, this has a good coverage. That bead is really good. There's my sealant. It doesn't look like there's any gaps in it that would allow water to get in. So yeah, I think I had a pinhole leak up here that caused the water. I think that's where my leak was. So not that you were planning on using a tarp to waterproof your shower, but what I learned was that even though conceivably this could work and it did pass an initial flood test, the tarps are just too thin. They are not durable enough to withstand working over the top of them with sharp objects like trowels and screws and cement board and stuff like that. But even though the tarp failed this flood test, it's not going to stop me from trying to help people come up with solutions that can't afford a lot of the products that we use here. It reminds me, I had a viewer named David who reached out to me a few months ago, and he was telling me about his cause, and he's in Zambia, Africa. And so he's a missionary there, and what he does is he teaches the locals how to do skilled labor. And he had watched my videos and he was learning a lot of the floating methods that I do and other installers do here in California, because the raw materials used to achieve these tile substrates are very inexpensive and readily available in even third world countries. So it's my hope that someday I could even maybe go out and help David out there in Zambia, Africa, teach these locals. And he told me that they're just incredible people. He told me if you ever meet these people, they are the warmest, most loving, hardest working people that he's ever met. And they just don't have the knowledge. They were never taught the skilled trades about how to do tiles straight and flat. And so, you know, maybe someday we'll be able to go over there. And David, if you're watching this, keep praying for me, brother, and hopefully I make it out there someday. Because imagine the lives we could change if we went out there and gave these people a skill that gives them a purpose and a living wage and confidence and all the other things that come with that sense of pride you get from a job well done. And you know, maybe it's not going to Zambia, Africa for you, but maybe in some way you can carry the skills that were taught to you and be a mentor to somebody who could use that same information. And my hope is, with the building trades and tile in particular, that we continue to carry these methods, pass them down, and build up those that are learning. So anyways, these are just some of the hopes and dreams that I have for our tile coach community we have here. And it truly is a community. It is nothing without you, and I am just really happy to be a part of it. So before I go, I love you. I love being your tile coach, and Merry Christmas.